Hello fellow lifelong learners. So today I'll share with you some ideas and thoughts to help you prepare for your semester start in September or October. And as always, my content is specifically made for neurodivergent and highly introverted adults, in this case more students. And therefore, if I am switching from a dark screen share to a bright one, I will give a warning so you don't get flashed. My name is Julia. I'm a neurodivergent German psychologist and lifelong learner. I'm also going to start studying again this September in a semi-virtual study program of positive psychology. This video is also part of my video series and playlist Back to Uni in 2025, and you can subscribe to the playlist using the link in the description. So since this will be a slightly longer video, as in longer than 5 minutes, I suggest you get yourself a nice cup of tea or hot beverage and get cozy. And you don't need to not jot anything down or so. I will share the list of things that I'm sharing in the description as well. By the way, tea update, still on my all-time favorite tea, Earl Grey, hot. In my case with milk though. A few months ago, I finished my bachelor degree in applied psychology with a major in digital psychology, or as Americans call it, cyber psychology. I helped my own brain by making lists of everything throughout that whole time. So I hope I can give you some good tips on things to consider to prepare for your first day of uni and your degree program. There are 6 sections in this video. Things to consider, up ahead. Things to get, digital tools to consider, stationery, organization, and mindful to-dos to prepare and to consider. All right, so let's get right in the first section, things to consider. And maybe even learn about as in preparation, because you will need it probably. So the first thing to consider, do you want to go Microsoft Office or Apple? I will make a full video about this, because it is actually possible to do it all in the Apple environment like I did. And I switched during my bachelor degree, so I started out with Microsoft Office because that's what the university recommended, as they probably all do, because it's cheaper. But then I switched to Apple for various reasons. One of them was that I just love working and studying on the iPad. But there are many things in this topic to consider. That's why I will make an extra video for this in this series. The second is which note-taking method you will use and whether you want to go more digital or analog or both. Another thing where I will make a video about, because I am mostly using digital note-taking because my short-term memory is basically non-existent. So I can only work with my long-term memory and other tools to aid my brain, which have turned out to work really, really well, I have to say. The next thing to consider is which time and task tracking system you will use. Again, you can go analog, digital, or a mixture. But this is another really important question, because all of these things to consider, you have to do that before you start, because if you start with that system in place and not in the middle or so, it will be a huge advantage and save you tons of time and headache later on in your degree. And finally, which AI studying aid will you use? I didn't use AI throughout most of my bachelor degree at all, well, except for translating maybe. But it really only came into its own within the last year or so. And now it would be silly, in my personal opinion, to not use a studying aid AI assistant. There are several different ones. Some are more focused on research, others on really helping you study, learning, retain information, using your long-term memory and so on. It's also something that I will make a video on, specifically which AIs there are and how you can use them, because each of them has different strengths and weaknesses. And if you know which one to use for which task that you are doing, you can save yourself humongous amounts of time and headache, specifically research time. And I'm not even talking about letting AI do your work for you, not at all. I mean, if anybody who does that, okay, I don't want to be judgy, but it's not the point of learning, to be honest, in my personal opinion. But as an aid, they are amazing, honestly. So those are the things to consider. Very important topics. Part 2, things that you will probably need to get for yourself. So first of all, tech tools, of course, a laptop and a tablet. You can go with only a laptop. However, if you want to also write digital notes and get a bit creative, then it's very good to have a tablet. Also, you can use, for easy lectures, you can use a tablet with a keyboard as a laptop, and it's a lot less weight on your back. So you have that option as well. The reason you need a laptop in some study programs is because certain programs like advanced statistical programs like SPSS or so don't work on a tablet. So if you are unsure, if you want to go only with a tablet, it's probably good to find out from your university whether your study program does require some sort of advanced software for which you would need a laptop. Then the right bag. Personally, I prefer bags with two strips that you can put on your back. I'll show you mine. This is my bag. And if you have to walk a lot, then it's probably better to have two stripes. I forgot that word, but you know what I mean. Then a water bottle, very important. A water bottle that ideally either fits into your bag or has some hanger with which you can attach it to your bag. This is my water bottle. It's a very standard one, but it definitely helps to have that there in front of your face when you are sitting in a lecture or studying, because otherwise you will probably forget to drink when you get into your hyper focus. Then, very important, noise cancelling headphones. Absolutely essential for neurodivergent folks. For headphones that just cancel out all noise, I can really recommend loops, because due to their form, they go into the ear in a way that you don't see it. And it's so flat that you can actually sleep on it. I sleep with those because I want to cancel out some noises that my dear husband makes every now and then, very rarely. And it works really well. They cancel out absolutely everything. And then if you want to also hear music, the ones that I have are those Beats headphones. I've compared tons and tons of them and read reviews and whatnot, and I had others before. Those have amazing noise cancelling and a very good sound. And yeah, I can really recommend those. The next thing is to get healthy snacks in advance, because studying hungry is never a good thing, and your concentration suffers if you are not hydrated and hungry. And when you are neurodivergent, very often you forget that you are hungry. Your body still notices it, but when you are in hyperfocus, you don't actually realize that the thing that is distracting you is hunger. So I use those right now because they are full of nuts and protein. And when you eat protein, you don't get hungry again for more unhealthy snacks easily. Plus, I really like nuts and caramel. And they don't have too many calories. Next is a portable charger, of course, always a necessity. I use this one. I use this one because I can also charge my Apple Watch with it here. And I can charge my laptop and my iPad with it, with one of those chargers. So all my devices. And it even has a little display that says how full it is, which reminds me that I have to fill it up. Yes, and then a hand sanitizer and a study timer, a visual study timer. This is amazing. And it doesn't need to be an expensive one. There are these things for kids. So they are for kids. So what? It costs, I think, less. It costs less than 10 euros. And the wonderful thing is that this is a 1 hour study timer. And 1 hour is a good time, I feel. It's a good time to be in your hyper focus and get something done in your hyper focus. Of course, we all could go longer, of course. But after 1 hour, it's good to check with your body. Do I need to go on the toilet? Do I need to eat something? Do I need to drink something? Yes, you do. I know there are Pomodoro timers with 25 minutes and then a break, but in 25 minutes, you don't even get properly into a research topic before you have a break reminder. I feel 1 hour is much more comfortable. But of course, you can only but of course, you can also go for 45 minutes. And you can see visually, you put this in front of you, and you see the time that has passed and that you still have until the next break. And seeing it makes all the difference. Much better than an alarm. An alarm, if it's only a short alarm, Sometimes in a real good hyperfocus, you don't even notice that there was an alarm. And the world can fall apart outside of your window and you don't really notice. But if you see it in front of your face, it makes all the difference. Right, so that was the things to get that I would recommend to get. So part 3 are digital tools that you can consider to get. First of all, a digital notebook, either one that is online or one that is local on your device. For an online notebook, you can, for example, use Notion, and there are tons of videos on Notion out there. And for one that is on your application and in the cloud, my favorite one is GoodNotes. But I also use Notability for different use cases. GoodNotes and Notability have the massive advantage, like all digital note-taking apps really, that meanwhile you can search for any term and it finds it for you, even if you hand wrote it. So if you hand write something in your GoodNotes notebook, this will also be findable. And specifically if you are one of those people who write down information and then later on forget where you wrote it down, this is amazing to find any kind of term anywhere. Also, those apps have meanwhile tons of free templates that you can use, beautiful templates, like a digital study planner, about which I will make a future video as well, because I use a template of a very good study planner in GoodNotes. The next thing is a book app, where you can buy your books or even rent them digitally and read online. Also annotate them and copy texts out of those books and into your notes. I of course use Apple Books and annotate my course books in there, which I usually get. Your university will also let you hire books, of course. The thing that I like about owning them is that I have a system with the app Readwise where I can see all my annotations per book and search them, interact with them, and also copy them in a summary that I do for a specific topic. And more on that also in a future video, because this whole area of how to take notes, how to read and write and organize the information that you collect is a huge and very important topic. The next is a flashcard app. So flashcards are very important if you have no short-term memory, because in that case, if you have exams where you need to learn a lot of things that you then have to, in 2 hours of exam, put on paper, you have to put that into your long-term memory if you don't have a short-term memory. And there is a way to do that with spaced repetition, but you need to start early on that, because since it's spaced, it takes longer. But with flashcards that support spaced repetition, it actually works. It actually works to work only with your long-term memory. And I say that as a not so young anymore student on top of being neurodivergent. More on this also in a future video in this series. And finally, a library card. Why a library card? So this is specific not only to Germany, but I actually have a little hobby when we go on travels and we go into a bigger city somewhere in a country. I get a library card, because you have to go to the library in person only once to get the library card, because you have to show your passport that you are really you, and then you get the library card and they make an awful picture in very bad lighting right then and there. But once you have the library card, and this is the only way to get it in person, once you have it, you have access to all their digital repositories, digital books, magazines, tons and tons of things. So I have, for example, a library card of the Scottish National Library, and of course of the German one, and some others. So if I don't find a book in the one, I can always go to some of the others, and the chance that I don't find a book to lend out that way are close to none. Find out where your next biggest library is and get that library card in person, so you have that off your table and you can lend out books from the comfort of your home. Next big advantage to do that before the semester start is that the university libraries are a lot less crowded before university starts. So now we come to the fourth section, which is stationery. These are very obvious things, so I'll go through them really fast. Even if you go all digital, at the very least to jot down a few things, and sometimes for exams, if there are still written exams, you will need a little bit of stationery at least. So a pencil case, this is way too big. I have a smaller one as well that I use, because for my written exams, the few that I had, I only needed a handful of pens. Really only one, the one that you write your exam with. And that, I would say, is the most important pen. Because especially if you haven't written a lot with your hand, but only typed it, and then you suddenly have 2-hour-long written exams where you have to write really fast and really a lot for 2 hours. I can tell you what happened when I started with my bachelor in the first year. My hand cramped up like crazy, and after the first few 2-hour exams, my hand hurt for the rest of the day. Not anymore, because now I've gotten myself used again to handwriting through journaling. This is a big plus of analog journaling, by the way. You could say it is a preparation for your exam. But yes, the pen with which you write your exam, it needs to be smooth. You need to test it, that it lies in your hand in a good way, and that it doesn't make you cramp up. Sometimes pens are very thin or very big, and all of that makes a difference. So try and test it. Mine is the Zebra Sarasara 0.5. The size of the tip is also important. So best to start experimenting with that and getting yourself, if you have written exams, getting yourself back into writing by hand, and avoid all the pain later on. Then if you have books like paper books, you will need page flags and highlighters. It's always good to have a pencil, and in that case you need a sharpener, of course, and a eraser. There are frizzle-free erasers, so you can erase something with that eraser and you don't have any frizzles, for lack of a better word. And of course you don't need a sharpener if you have one of those where you can just have the pencil mine slide forward. The next thing I would recommend is a mini notebook, or something where you can quickly jot down something, a thought when it occurs, or some piece of information quickly. So For example, this morning while I was studying, I had an idea for my master thesis. I have a couple of ideas by now, but it's important that whenever I have an idea or a thought about a study or so, if something jumps out to me, that I write it down immediately. And it's best to have a couple of ways to do that when you are neurodivergent. You can, of course, speak it onto your audio recording on your phone, but then you need to remember what you spoke on which audio recording on your phone. It's therefore better to write it down, either in Apple Notes or in a digital notebook, because there you can actually find it again through the search function. Or you have one of those tiny notebooks, paper notebooks, and a pen, which is so thin that you can carry it around with you even in a small bag or so, have it close by on your table, and write it down in there, and have one of those small tiny notebooks for each topic that dominates your studying at that point in time. So I have one where I collect thoughts and information and whatnot for my master thesis. And I also have one for my first module, which is Introduction to Positive Psychology. And finally, for stationery, a journal. Not only for the reason to train your hand for handwriting again, but in general. And that goes also a little bit into part 6 about the mindful study tips and to-dos to prepare. It's good to have a study journal where you reflect on your learning and how and what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how you got on in, for example, your first week of university, and to write down those reflections will not only help you mentally, it will also help you to improve and grow more quickly as a student if you reflect on those notes regularly, and it will help with the handwriting. This is also a topic for a future video. So then we get to point 5, organization. So first, and specifically when you go back to university, as in you are in the middle of a study program, or you've just finished your bachelor and continue with your master like I do, the first thing is, of course, to declutter and clear up all your stuff from the last semester or your previous study program. So clear up your desktop, your devices, declutter everything, update everything to the latest versions, review the digital tools and also the other analog stuff that you still have from your previous semester, and decide what you still need and what you don't need anymore. So to have this all, to have such a big reset really helps you also mentally to have closure on your last semester and to be fully free in your mind for your upcoming study program. That includes to review all your subscriptions and the apps that you have on your phone and your tablet, if you have a tablet. Next thing, organization-wise, is to prepare your bag. And I will do a what is in my bag video in this series as well. The next one is to make your lists. And with that I mean for everything that you want to do that entails more than 3 things to remember, it's better to make a list, because usually your brain only remembers 3 things, And from a longer list, it remembers the first few and the last few, but not the middle ones. So for that, it is of course good to have one place where you have all those lists, whatever list it is, whether it's a to-do list or another one. I use an analog study planner for that, and it's the one from Pumpkin Productivity from Ruby Granger. The sticker is from me, of course, but this is the planner, and it has a to-do list for every day, and also overall lists specifically for students. So a master to-do list, lists to things to do in your semester break, and a couple of more that's specifically useful for students. However, I don't know yet whether there will be a new study planner for this winter semester. I sure hope so, but at this point in time I don't know yet, because we'll only find out in August, I think, in like more the middle of August. The next thing to organize is your study space. It's important that you create your own study space which aligns with your sensory sensitivity. Your study space should be ideally somewhere where you feel comfortable, where you like to sit down to study. And there are many ways in which you can make this happen, even if you are somewhere where there is some noise every now and then, or if you don't have your own room. And again, this is the topic of a future video. How to create a study space that is conducive to studying for you and that makes you happy. So then, organization-wise, a very important thing is, as soon as you get from your university the access to the learning platform that they are using, to go into this learning platform, set up your login. There's usually quite a bit to do it by means of setup. So you will get an email from the university, which you might want to put an auto forward into your personal email, so you don't have to open 2 email boxes all the time and don't miss out on any. You will be able to review the content probably of your first module on the learning platform, so you can start setting up your learning plan already maybe, and other things. You will get all the dates for your lectures and any other dates which you can transfer into your study calendar and your learning calendar. But that date when you get that access from your university, that's when basically the whole study program starts, and from there on out it gets more busy. So it's best to be prepared for that. All right, and then lastly, part 6 is about mindful to-dos, mindful things you can prepare for your mental health. And I think of all of the parts, this is really the most important one. So here are my recommendations. Write down your intentions and the ways you want to mind your own well-being during your study program. For example, ideas for study breaks. What could you do in a study break? You can make a mood board and use that as a wallpaper, a mood board that motivates you to study. And if you want to have some examples, you can have a look at my Pinterest boards, where I have tons of images around that topic. A mood board that you can then use as a screensaver also, or as a background, a wallpaper, really adds to making you motivated to learn later on. You can make yourself a music playlist with music that you can listen to while you are in hyper focus and that calms you down without distracting you. I'm personally no longer on Spotify because it got too annoying with all the ads, even if you have a subscription. But I do have a few Apple Music playlists that I can share for that. Then you can go on YouTube and just find other student channels that you might like to subscribe to. One that I can of course recommend is the one from Ruby Granger, although she doesn't currently study anymore. She's already finished with her master, but even her old videos about her studying at Oxford University are very calm and very motivating for studying. And of course you can make yourself a YouTube playlist with your favorite ones. I have one like that I even have a YouTube playlist for motivating myself to study, to actually sit down and get into it, which I can also share with you. One of the lists that I also recommend you to do is a Sunday reset list. So things you can do on a Sunday, making a list to have a reset, a smaller version than the one I talked about before, between semesters, in this case only between weeks, so that you go into the new week with your mind and your study space decluttered and making sure that you have done all the annoying things that usually divert you from studying. So things like, I don't know, doing the washing or maybe even preparing some food or so. Things that you can tick off on a Sunday to have a perfect week at university. The next thing I would recommend is to set up screen time limits and specific to Apple focus types. So in the Apple ecosystem, you can set up a focus type specifically for studying, for example, where you get notifications only from certain apps and not from others, and only certain people can call you or none at all. Or message you. Basically, you can fine-tune what comes through on your phone, no matter what, and what doesn't. And for each of those focus types, you can even set your own screensaver, for example. That's of course not necessary, but those focus types that you can set up with Apple, if you set one up specifically for study time, that is amazing and really aids you in your focus. Specifically, if you have ADHD, to be completely undisturbed by simply switching on the focus studying, it's a big benefit. And finally, to plan your days and routines for studying and work. So in respect to meals, break times, and find out what works for you. So each of us has different attention spans. Some like to have Pomodoro sessions of 1 hour and then 10 minutes break, others for 30 minutes and 5 minutes break. Some people learn better in the morning, or some people learn better in the evening. And you can set up your own routines, specifically also morning and evening routines, according to what is specific to you, what works for you and your circadian cycle. This is also the topic of a future video because it's a really big area. But you can start now by figuring out what it is that works for you and doesn't. The sooner you have this figured out, the sooner you can study more effectively when you start university. And specifically for neurodivergent people, the morning routine is very important. I would recommend to have some kind of exercise in your day because that's really good for your dopamine levels. As I said before, the right amount to eat and to be hydrated really is in general important, but even more important when you have a neurodivergent brain. That was part 6. I went really fast through those lists. A lot of those will require deeper dives in upcoming videos in this series. But now you have an overview. So please let me know in the comments if you think that I forgot something, or whether you have anything to add so that the other community members can see your tips as well. And yeah, I hope those study tips will help you in enjoying, not just doing, but enjoying your study program, and get excited for actually starting it in September or October, depending on when yours is starting. And I wish you all the best. Have fun considering all these things, and I will be seeing you in the next video in this series. Until then, bye bye, lifelong learners.